Why do others doubt you relentlessly, even when you've done everything right? It's not what happens to you, but how you react, declared Epictetus, wise words until you face a harsh truth. You act with integrity. You stay grounded in your values. Yet, skepticism follows like a shadow. Is it you? Or is there something deeper, and far more human, at play? Today, we dissect the 9 invisible forces that breed distrust, even in the most virtuous, and how Stoicism doesn't just help you respond, but rise above, untouchable and unshaken. Number 1. The shadow of envy, amor fati. The success of others can cast long shadows over our lives, shadows that whisper of inadequacy, stoke resentment, and distort our sense of worth. Envy, that quiet thief of joy, thrives in comparison, convincing us that someone else's light dims our own. This shadow isn't merely about wanting what others possess, it's rooted in a deeper fear that we are not enough. Fixating on another's achievements, relationships, or status turns their triumphs into mirrors of our own perceived shortcomings. Such fixation breeds bitterness, distracts us from our path, and traps us in self-sabotage. Envy poisons relationships and corrodes our ability to nurture the good in our own lives. Envy consumes us when we measure self-worth against others' highlights, creates a false narrative of lack. Having a scarcity mindset by believing that life's blessings are finite, that someone else's gain is your loss. Envy often masks insecurity about purpose or legacy. Stoic philosophy offers an antidote, amor fati, love of fate. Epictetus taught, he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. Amor fati redirects energy from resenting others' paths to embracing and improving our own. It reframes envy as a signal call to refocus on what we can control: gratitude, effort, and character. A historical example is Zeno of Citium, founder of Stoicism, lost his fortune in a shipwreck and transformed disaster into opportunity by dedicating his life to philosophy. His amor fati turned into legacy. Contrast this with Nero, whose envy of others' talents and paranoia over rivals led to tyranny, isolation, and self-destruction. Envy dissolves when you fall in love with your own fate. Amor fati teaches that no one's journey can invalidate yours. Redirect comparison into curiosity. What can I learn from them? How can I improve without self-judgment? When life becomes a classroom, not a competition, envy loses its power. The shadow of envy exists only because there's light somewhere else, your light. Tend to your own flame, and you'll cast a shadow that inspires rather than consumes. As the Stoics knew, a life loved is a life unstolen. Number 2. The control paradox, dichotomy of control. The tighter we grip, the more slips through our fingers, a paradox that traps us in cycles of frustration and helplessness. The desire to control the outcomes, people, or circumstances often backfires, leaving us exhausted by forces beyond our command. This paradox isn't limited to grand ambitions, it permeates daily life. We obsess over others' opinions, cling to rigid plans, or fret over external events, mistaking anxiety for agency. The illusion of control amplifies suffering, as we wage unwinnable wars against reality. When outcomes defy our efforts, resentment festers, and self-doubt creeps in. If only I tried harder, things would be different. Paradox traps us when we are overestimating our influence. The fear of uncertainty, we are mistaking control for safety and basing self-worth on result. Stoic philosophy cuts through this with its dichotomy of control, a framework separating what is within our power, thoughts, choices, values, from what is not, external events, others' actions, the past. As Epictetus wrote, some things are within our control, and some are not. If you seek to control the uncontrollable, you will be at war with life. The Stoic response is not passivity but clarity, investing energy only where it matters. A historical example is Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who ruled Rome during plague, war, and political corruption. His journal, Meditations, reveals a man focused solely on his duty and virtue, accepting external chaos as indifferent to his character. Contrast this with King Xerxes of Persia, who, according to legend, ordered the sea to be whipped for destroying his bridges, a futile attempt to dominate the uncontrollable. True control begins with surrender. The Stoic dichotomy liberates you from the tyranny of externals, redirecting focus to the only realm where power truly resides, your mind and choices. When you stop wrestling with the unchangeable, you gain stamina for what matters, cultivating wisdom, courage, and resilience. Life is a river, fighting the current exhausts you, while swimming with purpose steers you. The Stoics remind us, mastery lies not in commanding the waters but in navigating them with grace. Let go of the illusion, and you'll find control was never what you lacked, only clarity. Number 3. The ego's defense, Stoic humility. The ego builds walls to protect walls of pride, defensiveness, and superiority. Yet these defenses often imprison rather than liberate, isolating us from growth, connection, and truth. Stoic humility dismantles these walls, not by erasing self-worth, but by grounding it rather than illusion. The ego's defense mechanisms manifest subtly, resisting feedback, refusing to admit mistakes, or conflating being right with being worthy. When challenged, the ego retaliates with blame, deflection, or denial, prioritizing self-preservation over growth. What begins as protection becomes a cage, stifling relationships and self-awareness. Why the ego's defense harms us? It blinds us to growth and blocks our learning by being defensive. Arrogance pushes others away, masking vulnerability with false invincibility. It distorts reality, ego clings to flattery and filters out truths that threaten its narrative. Stoic humility disarms these traps. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Pride is a master of deception. When you think you're occupied in the weightiest business, that's when he has you in his spell." Humility, in Stoicism, is not self-deprecation but clear-eyed self-awareness, the courage to see oneself without illusion and to prioritize progress over perfection. A historical example is Socrates, though not a Stoic, embodied humility through his famous declaration, "I know that I know nothing." His relentless questioning exposed his own ignorance to pursue wisdom. Contrast this with Emperor Commodus, who declared himself a god and demanded worship, his ego blinding him to Rome's decay until his assassination. Humility is the antidote to the ego's poison. It asks you to replace "I am superior" with "I am learning," and "I must win" with "I must understand." When you disarm the ego, you gain access to deeper relationships, resilience, and the quiet confidence of knowing you need not be perfectly accountable. The ego is a fortress, humility is a bridge. Tear down the walls, and you'll find strength not in being unassailable, but in being unafraid to grow. As the Stoics taught, true power lies not in what you defend, but in what you're willing to release. Number 4. Prejudice is projection, Stoic objectivity. Prejudice acts like a cracked mirror, distorting reality to reflect the insecurities, fears, and unhealed wounds of the beholder. When others project their biases onto you, it rarely speaks to your character and almost always reveals their inner turmoil. As Epictetus warned, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Stoicism teaches that the antidote to prejudice isn't persuasion but unshakable objectivity and principled action. Prejudice as projection thrives in judgmental labels, stereotypes, or assumptions. A coworker dismisses your ideas as naive because they've been burned by past failures. A stranger distrusts you based on ingrained cultural biases. These reactions are rarely about you, they're echoes of others' unresolved pain, fear of the unfamiliar, or rigid mental shortcuts. Engaging in debate often fuels the fire, as the projector clings tighter to their narrative. Stoic objectivity disarms projection by refusing to internalize or retaliate. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." By focusing solely on your own virtue, acting with integrity, fairness, and compassion, you render others' distortions powerless. your character becomes a mirror that reflects their biases back to them, inviting introspection rather than conflict. An example from history is Rutilius Rufus, a Stoic statesman, was falsely accused of corruption and exiled. Rather than rage at his accusers, he lived virtuously in exile, writing, "I would rather be condemned for a crime I did not commit than commit one to avoid condemnation." His dignity exposed the baselessness of the charges. Contrast this with politicians like Nero, who projected his own corruption onto scapegoats, deepening public cynicism. Prejudice loses power when met with unflinching objectivity. Stoicism teaches that you cannot control others' perceptions, but you can control how you embody your values. By refusing to wear others' projections, you force the world to see you as you are, not as it fears or imagines. As Epictetus implied, let your life be the argument that silences doubt. A cracked mirror cannot define, only reflect its own brokenness. Polish your character with virtue, and even the most distorted projections will fade in the light of your example. The Stoics knew, when you stop explaining and start being, prejudice meets its match. Number 5. The crowd's madness, Stoic self-reliance. The roar of the crowd often drowns out reason, a cacophony of conformity that equates popularity with truth. Heraclitus' warning, "The masses are asleep," captures the danger of groupthink, where doubters reject outliers not through logic but through fear of the unfamiliar. To stand apart is to risk being labeled a threat, yet Stoicism calls this self-reliance, not defiance. The madness of the crowd isn't limited to mobs or extremists. It thrives in subtler forms, echo chambers, trends masquerading as truths, or silent compliance with harmful norms. When society prizes consensus over critical thought, individuality becomes suspect. Those who question dogma or forge unique paths face suspicion, labeled naive or disruptive for refusing to sleepwalk with the herd. Why do the crowd resist outliers? Because of having the fear of exclusion, conformity offers safety. Borrowed opinions spare the effort of independent thought. Loyalty to group ideals overrides personal ethics. Stoic self-reliance defies this madness. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let the crowd's noise be irrelevant to you. Look within, where truth resides." Stoics measure truth by reason, not applause, anchoring decisions in virtue rather than validation. This isn't rebellion for its own sake, but fidelity to one's inner compass, even when it points against the current. Socrates, though predating Stoicism, embodied this principle by challenging Athenian norms, declaring, "An unexamined life is not worth living." His commitment to truth over popularity cost him his life but immortalized his legacy. Contrast this with Emperor Nero, who manipulated public adoration through spectacle and fear, only to be remembered for his tyranny and insecurity. Follow thinkers who challenge your views. As Seneca advised, associate with those who will improve you. The crowd's approval is a fickle compass, self-reliance is your true north. When doubted for being different, remember herd mentality fades, but integrity endures. Let reason, not rhetoric, guide you. As the Stoics taught, it takes courage to think clearly in a world drunk on noise. A lighthouse does not sway with the waves, it stands firm, guiding ships through storm and calm alike. Be the lighthouse. Let the crowd's chaos crash against your clarity, and you'll illuminate a path others eventually follow. Number 6. Trauma's ghost, Stoic compassion. A betrayed person sees liars everywhere. Trauma warps perception. When someone has been deeply hurt, betrayed, abandoned, or abused, their pain can haunt future interactions, turning innocent actions into echoes of past harm. Marcus Aurelius's wisdom, "The best revenge is not to be like them," urges us to respond to such wounded skepticism not with resentment, but with compassion and self-protection. Stoic compassion here is twofold, understanding that others' distrust is rooted in their suffering, while refusing to absorb their toxicity. Compassionate acknowledgement validates their pain without endorsing false accusations. Set boundaries and teach them that trust cannot be rebuilt through control, but through mutual respect. When you preserve your peace, refusing to internalize their distrust frees you from resentment or guilt-tripping. Trauma's ghost distorts reality, turning loved ones into prisoners of their past. Stoic compassion asks us to meet their pain with patience, not as a doormat, but as a grounded, boundary ally. By refusing to mirror their mistrust, Marcus Aurelius's revenge, we create space for healing while safeguarding our own well-being. As the Stoics taught, we cannot control others' wounds, but we can control how we honor our integrity in the face of them. In an age of fractured trust and rising cynicism, this principle reminds us that compassion is not weakness, it's the ultimate strength. It takes courage to see others hurt clearly, respond without ego, and protect your light without extinguishing theirs. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, wrote Marcus Aurelius. Choose to color yours with clarity, not chaos. Number 7. The Arrogance Trap, Stoic Confidence versus Ego. At its core, the distinction between Stoic confidence and ego-driven arrogance lies in motivation and impact. Stoic confidence is rooted in self-mastery, humility, and alignment with purpose. It is unshakable because it comes from within, a quiet assurance that needs no validation. Arrogance, however, is ego masquerading as strength. It thrives on external approval, dominates conversations to assert superiority, and often crumbles under scrutiny because it lacks substance. Seneca's wisdom, "A wise man speaks because he has something to say, not to be right," captures this dichotomy perfectly. The Stoic prioritizes contributing value over winning validation. Arrogance, by contrast, fixates on being perceived as correct or dominant, even at the cost of alienating others or distorting truth. When arrogance speaks, it often drowns out its own credibility. Why arrogance invites doubt? Because it overpromises and underdelivers. It dismisses feedback and breeding distrust. It prioritizes self-image over growth, making it brittle in adversity. Stoic confidence, however, earns respect. Because it listens deeply and speaks sparingly, ensuring words carry weight. It embraces humility as a path to wisdom. It focuses on actions, like integrity and consistency. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, led Rome through crises with quiet resolve, documenting his struggles privately in meditations. His confidence came from duty, not ego. Contrast this with Nero, whose arrogance, grandiose projects, silencing critics, bred chaos and suspicion. Cultivate Stoic confidence by grounding yourself in purpose, humility, and action. Avoid the arrogance trap by letting your work ethic, integrity, and resilience speak for you. Confidence inspires, arrogance isolates. As the Stoics taught, true power lies not in being seen as strong, but in being strong, quietly, consistently, and without fanfare. Arrogance is a performance, confidence is a practice. Choose the latter, and you'll never need the spotlight to feel secure. Number 8. Information glut, Stoic clarity. We live in an age where information floods every corner of life, like a relentless storm that drowns out truth in a deluge of noise. In this chaos, doubt becomes a reflex, as people struggle to trust what they hear, see, or read. When misinformation mingles with facts, skepticism takes root, and even honest voices struggle to be heard. The problem of information glut isn't just about blatant lies or conspiracy theories. It arises from everyday sources like social media algorithms, biased reporting, or even well-meaning individuals sharing half-truths. When people prioritize speed over accuracy, or sensationalism over substance, credibility erodes. Worse, those who weaponize information, through manipulation, exaggeration, or silence, turn doubt into a weapon, fracturing trust in institutions, leaders, and one another. This environment breeds a defensive mindset. When every claim feels suspect, people either cling blindly to familiar narratives or reject all sources as equally unreliable. The more we're bombarded with conflicting messages, the harder it becomes to discern truth, leading to paralysis, cynicism, or blind allegiance to ideologies. Misinformation doesn't just confuse us, it isolates us, turning dialogue into battlegrounds where shouting replaces listening. The lack of critical inquiry, paired with the rush to judge or share, deepens the divide. We build echo chambers instead of bridges, favoring comfort over clarity. Resentment grows toward those we deem ignorant or misled, while our own biases go unchallenged. In this storm, trust becomes collateral damage. Stoic philosophy offers an anchor in this turbulence. Zeno of Citium's teaching, "Better to trip with the feet than the tongue," reminds us that reckless words compound chaos, while deliberate actions rebuild trust. Stoic clarity isn't about having all the answers but embracing humility, rigor, and consistency. It asks us to weigh our words, verify our sources, and align our deeds with our principles, even when no one is watching. Consider the Roman statesman Cato the Younger, who embodied Stoic clarity by living austerely and refusing to engage in political theatrics, even as corruption engulfed Rome. His unwavering integrity made his silent dissent louder than the empty promises of his peers. Contrast this with demagogues of his era, who used fiery rhetoric to sway crowds but left legacies of division and distrust. Stoic clarity in practice. Speak only when necessary. Silence is not a weakness but discipline. Ask, does this add light, or just heat? Let actions validate words. Build trust through small, consistent acts, meeting deadlines, admitting errors, citing sources. Seek truth, not victory. Replace "am I right" with "is this true?" Scrutinize your own biases as fiercely as others. In a world drowning in noise, Stoic clarity is your compass. It teaches that trust is earned not by loudness but by quiet integrity. When you prioritize truth over trends, and proof over persuasion, skepticism loses its grip. As Zeno implied, stumble in your efforts, but never in your honesty. Over time, steady action cuts through doubt like a lighthouse in fog, guiding others not by words, but by the reliability of your light. Misinformation thrives in haste, clarity grows in patience. Anchor yourself in what is true, not what is convenient, and you'll navigate the storm without becoming part of it. Number 9. The illusion of certainty, Stoic acceptance. We live in a world where the ground beneath our feet often feels like shifting sand, a place where doubters cling to absolutes, desperate for stability in life's chaos. Yet the harder we grasp certainty, the more it slips away, leaving frustration, rigidity, and resentment in its wake. The illusion of certainty isn't just about grand existential questions, it seeps into everyday life. We demand guarantees in relationships, careers, or societal systems, refusing to accept that uncertainty is woven into existence itself. When others challenge our views or refuse to validate our beliefs, we interpret it as a threat, a crack in the fragile foundation we've built. This craving for absolutes breeds anxiety, stifles growth, and strains connections, as we judge others for their ignorance or disloyalty to our truths. Why certainty is an illusion. Chaos is inherent. Life's unpredictability defies human control. Health crises, economic shifts, or shifting relationships. Fear drives rigidity. Clinging to dogma or black and white thinking offers false comfort but isolates us from nuance and growth. External validation traps us. Basing self-worth on others' approval chains us to their ever-changing opinions. Stoic philosophy confronts this head-on. Epictetus' teaching, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do," urges us to anchor ourselves in internal purpose, not external guarantees. Stoic acceptance isn't passive resignation, it's the courage to act while releasing attachment to outcomes or others' approval. By focusing on what we can control, our choices, values, and responses, we disarm the tyranny of uncertainty. Consider Seneca, who navigated political turmoil in Nero's court. Despite constant danger, he wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future." He accepted the impermanence of power, focusing instead on cultivating virtue. Contrast this with figures like Caligula, whose paranoia and demand for absolute loyalty led to tyranny and isolation. Practice acceptance, define your inner citadel. Clarify your core values and let them guide decisions, not others' opinions. Embrace amor fati, love fate, not as passive surrender, but as trust in your ability to adapt and grow from whatever arises. Accept that some will never understand or approve of you. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject. Certainty is a mirage, acceptance is liberation. When you stop seeking guarantees or universal agreement, you reclaim power over your peace. Let Epictetus' wisdom reframes your journey. Become who you wish to be through disciplined action and let go of the rest. Trust that your character, not others' approval, is the ultimate measure of a well-lived life. The Stoics taught that the only certainty is uncertainty, and therein lies freedom. Anchor yourself in purpose, not perfection, and you'll walk through life's chaos unshaken, like a tree that bends in the storm but never breaks. Stoicism teaches that doubt is externality belongs to the doubter, not you. Your task, control the controllable, your integrity, your perseverance, your indifference to false judgments. As you leave, ask yourself, if I were already unshakable, how would their doubt affect me? Hit subscribes for more ancient wisdom in modern chaos. In the comments, share one Stoic quote that helps you rise above skepticism.